Why isn't it Spiderman? You know, like Goldman, Silverman.
Because it's not his last name.
It isn't?
No, it's not like Phil Spiderman. He's a Spider-Man.
Spider-Man does whatever a spider can. Welcome back to the Real World Podcast. We have had a hell of a time trying to get this going. Big Spideas, episode 3. This is our Spider-Man podcast. We've done the Raimi trilogy. We've done the web duology. This was an accent issue when we tried this before. But before we get to any of that, like, you guys have heard Mike this whole time, but he's actually been on a wonderful European vacation. So I'm going to welcome him back to the world of recording and say, Mike, how are you? How was Europe, my home continent?
Europe was fun. I missed recording things.
Yeah.
But,
well, we did a lot of it before you went.
Yeah, that last week was very busy.
Yes, it was.
But it's good to be back in the swing of things now, and let's talk about this movie. Which, despite the fact that we have been on Skype for the last hour, we still don't know what we think of this movie.
Yeah, we were trying to do this via Google Hangouts and stuff, and we had amazing audio quality, but could not record it for love or money. Well, money we could have, but I refuse to pay. And yeah, I don't know if it's a first for the podcast, but it doesn't happen very often. We usually just send each other feelings on how whatever we're watching is ahead of time, but we have done no conference on this whatsoever. Mike knows I think it's at least good because of my first attempt to record this podcast with him. But that's it. That's all we know. So, let's get into this. This is our third lot of Spider-Man movies in as many years. After everything that happened with Sony and Amazing and everything, and this sort of the public embarrassment of the leaked emails and wanting to fire Andrew Garfield and all this, they went through some problems. The MCU was absolutely crushing it, and a deal was reached against all odds, wherein essentially Sony are paying for it and distributing it and keeping the profits, but Marvel have creative control. And here we are with Spider-Man Homecoming, which came out like a month ago, I guess, because we're very current. And yes, it's got very good word of mouth. It's making a lot of money, but it doesn't matter what other people think. It matters what we think. And Mike, broad thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. Reveal to me for the first time your hot takes before we dive into this deeply.
Well, what I'll say is it's definitely getting good reviews. It's getting good word of mouth. It doesn't feel like a thing, though, right? Like, it doesn't feel like a big deal. It doesn't feel like the next big thing. Like, it feels, despite everyone agreeing that it's... Not everyone, but like virtually everyone agreeing that it's good and worthwhile, there still seems to be a little bit of fatigue going on, at least from my perception, with whether it's superhero movies, Marvel specifically, Spider-Man specifically. I think, for instance, Wonder Woman felt like a much bigger deal. And of course, this is all like bullshit anecdotal evidence, the stuff that leads to a million pieces and somehow full-time living for writers online. But nonetheless, it does feel relevant that such a successful movie with one of comic book's biggest heroes does not feel like the big deal that you would expect given those parameters.
Yeah, it's not a massive landmark thing, I would say, for sure. I think Marvel being what they are these days plays a part with that. Like,
yes,
you know, like we talked about it, like when Raimi's Spider-Man came out, it felt like a big deal because there wasn't really a lot to compete with. Whereas now, like, next year there's going to be, I think, 3 Marvel movies, 3 Fox movies, and a Sony movie, which is insane. So I think it's difficult for any of them to hugely stand out. But I think I would agree with that.
Everything with Marvel kind of feels like a cog in a machine. Like, there's no room for a Logan. There's, for better or worse, there's no room for a Deadpool, where things can really stand out and feel like, wow, this is something wildly different than something we've gotten before. And really, this is not. This is kind of what I would actually kind of consider like a combo of of the Raimi vision, the Webb vision, and the general Marvel format for movie making. And as a result, because they take almost all the good qualities and very few of the bad ones, you're left with what is, I consider to be a very fun movie. But I do think it's notable that an objectively successful movie does not feel all that significant in the grand scheme of things, which is a little bit surprising, because I thought that would be kind of the one thing that was definitely a big issue with the Webb Spider-Man, is they felt just so insignificant. They felt so skippable. They felt so needless. And they just kind of came and went without anybody caring. And this is not quite that, obviously, but it feels less of a big deal than a successful Spider-Man movie probably should feel.
I think it's paying the price for, like, it's suffering for the sins of the father, as it were. Like, this is the third iteration of Spider-Man.
Yes.
And all that. But I think everyone I know who's seen it likes it, at least likes it. I think the online buzz is good, it's well reviewed, it's making money. How big an event it is, that's here and there, I guess. But
sure.
I think, shockingly enough, I really, really, really like this movie. I like it more than the films you mentioned, Logan and Deadpool. I like it more. I certainly like it more than any other Spider-Man movie. This is one of my favorite superhero movies ever.
I think that is the perfect transition to Matt. Tell me why this one really does it for you. Why is Spider-Man Homecoming one of your favorite superhero movies of all time?
I just think it captures the spirit of Spider-Man so perfectly, and it feels very. It's very fun. It's very real and authentic in a way, while also like it's changing things up a great deal. There's a whole bunch of stuff in here that like we've never seen from Spider-Man or a superhero movie, but it just captures the essence of that character so well. It's so fun. It's a smaller stakes story. I don't know, like the way they incorporated it and seamlessly weaved their way into the MCU retroactively. I thought was very, very well done. All the ways they found to, pepper themselves into Marvel's history with the film opening with a scene from the Avengers, or the aftermath from a scene from the Avengers, and then just throughout the film, how
nerd alert, that was Civil War and not the Avengers.
It was not Civil War. Oh, I'm talking about the scene with the Vulture.
Oh, okay.
At the very beginning, the aftermath of the battle in New
York.
Yes.
I saw this at like 3 a.m. I saw this at like 3 a.m. French time when I'm back in America on my 3 hours after I landed. I'm not saying I fell asleep during that scene, but I may have fallen asleep.
Wow, okay, well this is going to be good then. It was a very rambly answer, but in essence, I loved the spirit of Spider-Man that was captured. I have said throughout this that I'm not happy with how Spider-Man's been represented, that to me he is the best comic book character. I was more proud of this, but I would stand by this interpretation by Tom Holland and this film in general ahead of any of the others, which are trying really hard to be big, kind of at the expense of the character. And it's not that you can't do a big Spider-Man story, but I think it made a lot of sense to do a small one in order to just really nail who it is and who the character is. And also because everything Marvel's got going is very big and large stakes. And they're about to release a 3-hour movie featuring 60 characters or some shit. And I think it was very smart to release this film that both metatextually, in comparison to the real movies, it makes sense to go small, and it fits the narrative because they're telling a story of a young Peter Parker who has only been Spider-Man for a short time. He is still a kid, and a large part of the movie is him trying to prove himself to Tony Stark. So I think it fit all round in that sense, the small scale. Because I'm just sick of it's going to be the end of the world unless this happens. That's exactly what DC keep doing, and I fucking hate it. And I liked that this was a more intimate Spider-Man story.
Yes, I definitely agree with that. I love that this was not an Armageddon story. And Spider-Man on his own doesn't really fit into an Armageddon story. He's too small of a character. He's just also not powerful enough. He doesn't have the physical capabilities of saving the world. It wouldn't really make sense for him to be off on his own doing such a thing. And so I wanted to. You said that this movie did things that no other Spider-Man movie had did before. Beyond the in your eyes, the other ones were very epic.
The
the
first three tried to be.
They were trying to be, okay. But I didn't feel like the stakes were particularly epic. Now, maybe emotionally they were trying to go for epic, but it wasn't like the supervillains had like world taking over ideas or anything like that.
No, and I think that's to its strength. I think.
Okay.
I mean, we're jumping around a lot here, and we normally do this in segments, but we're kind of freestyling this podcast. I thought Michael Keaton's portrayal of Vulture was one of the best comic book villains I've seen, certainly in a while. I'd put it way up. I mean, I know that's a low bar. We talk about it all the time, that the Marvel villains in particular are kind of shitty. We've seen a lot of
he was no Alfred Molina. I mean, come on. I mean, that's the greatest portrayal of any villain ever.
If you're listening right now and you're one of those people, like, I dare you to look me in the eye and tell me that, like, Doc Ock was better. Like, fuck you. This character actually had depth and motivation. Yeah, like you said, like, it wasn't like world taking over abilities, but this was a bad man with a plan in place to steal some. Like, he was moving up. He was going to steal a bunch of shit that was potentially going to make him the kind of threat the Avengers would have to step in and stop. And Peter stepped in and took him on by himself. And yeah, I loved it. I loved everything about it. I loved the cast. I love Peter's relationships with his friends and potential romantic interests. I was actually very worried about Tony Stark's involvement, because in all the trailers it was like, this seems like this Iron Man character we've seen on screen a lot. And I just wondered if it was diminishing returns or something, because the trailers were not doing it for me. But actually, I liked him here. Like, some of his early jokes weren't really like landing, but I thought he was a good sort of thing to bring in every sort of 20 minutes or half hour to kind of stabilize things a bit and ground it. And
yeah, I thought they did a surprisingly they held back on overdoing it. That would be the best way to describe it with Tony. You couldn't be surprised if it was over the top, if he was in it too much. But I don't think anyone could accuse a film of involving him too much here. And also, it was all about the growth of Peter as a character, which I would argue is the same thing they did in Iron Man 2. People go back and watch the fucking movie. But, like, regardless of whether or not you think it's a good movie or not, the Avengers were not about themselves. They were about Tony's growth as a character. Just watch the fucking movie before you fucking complain. And that's really what Tony was here. He served a dual purpose of tying Spider-Man to the larger picture, but his presence was all about the growth of Peter as a person. It made perfect sense that Peter and Tony would be paired up. This is not like, it wouldn't make sense if fucking like Vision was doing this role. Like, that would just be forced, or Thor was doing this role. Like, there are logical storyline reasons for Tony to be involved in this point.
Yeah. I would maybe argue that, like, the character development of Tony Stark throughout the years is, like, potentially the best thing in the MCU. It's sort of under the radar because people just think of Iron Man like, he's going to give us some funny jokes. But I actually think if you watch all those movies and see how his character has evolved, I think that's really well done. And I think it is a really good choice because, I mean, like, the big line that they gave away in the trailer, and one of the big lines in the film, I guess to sort of replace with great power comes great responsibility. When Tony tells him, if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have it. That's like an obvious massive callback to when Captain America asked Tony, without the suit, what are you? And what he went through in Iron Man 3, where he sort of felt he needed that suit to be safe, and then he got over that. And just his development as a more heroic individual, I think, made all the sense in the world to then have him mentoring Spider-Man. And, like, seeing how far he's come from when he was, like, the least role model-y person in the whole group to now he is the perfect sort of coach for Spider-Man.
Yes. I will say the only thing, I don't know if I have so much of an issue with it, but I think it's notable, is that Tony has done a lot of off-screen growing since Civil War, and it's not that it doesn't make sense, and it's not that it wasn't set up that way. You know, I think sometimes it's a little bit jarring, might not be too strong of a word, but it's certainly notable that this is a different Tony Stark than we last saw him on screen.
Well, we left him in a very raw place. Like, that fight with Cap is one of my favourite things that Marvel have put to screen, the emotion between those two in that fight. I mean, we saw him after that, actually, but
yeah,
it was a
and
very
I'm saying, like,
big thing.
They set him up to be in this place, but, clearly he had to go through some things to get to this slightly more mature, in certain ways, place. Overall, I think if anyone was concerned about the involvement of Robert Downey Jr. in this, they shouldn't be. It was more than a glorified cameo, but it was not a distraction, if anything. It was, I think, definitely an addition to the movie.
Yeah, it made sense, and also it's drawing power. Like, they may have had a hard time selling this, as we've seen. Like, as you mentioned, it doesn't feel like a big event. Robert Downey Jr.'s in it. I'll go see that. Is probably a thing that happened.
Yeah, and also, I think post Avengers 1, those first 2 years, I think it's, Iron Man 3, which, while creatively ambitious, and Thor 2, both suffered from feeling like, why are these two movies so closed off from everything we just experienced in the Avengers? And then Winter Soldier, the next one, felt much more involved in the bigger world with other characters popping in and out. And I think going forward, even if they want to build these movies as Thor or Iron Man or Spider-Man, it's good to have one or two, to be an unofficial pair-up movie, if you will.
Well, allegedly this deal with Sony and Marvel means that Sony get to borrow one Marvel character every time. They actually borrowed two in this one because, there's not really a place to talk about this, but Captain America's involvement here I thought was great. I loved that Cap was lame as hell. Because he's a character that I think of as being lame, and then I actually think the MCU have made him almost a bit too cool. And then seeing him in this role of doing these PSAs, I thought was great. And then having Hannibal Buress as the gym teacher reacting to him was perfect.
And there's actually another small one. One of the Howling Commando's grandsons is Peter's principal, which is a little bit too cute, but he's also played by the same actor.
Yeah, and that's why he shows the Cap videos, even though he's a war criminal.
Yes. I don't think how anyone can watch this and not think that the Marvel-Sony combo is a positive thing for Spider-Man, at least in the short term, given where Spider-Man had fallen to.
Yeah, I think it's great. It felt vibrant and alive and optimistic, and I left it. It's not that I wanted it to keep going, because I think pretty much every movie that comes out, it was a smidge too long, but it left me very much wanting to see where they go in the future and wanting to see this Marvel Sony Spider-Man story continue. I think they did a lot of really good...
Actually, now that you mention it, there was one more MCU character. Actually, there was two more MCU characters popped in this, both with inexplicably high billings. Jon Favreau, the third billed actor in this movie, playing Happy Hogan. Yeah.
And Gwyneth Paltrow as Pepper, yes.
Who was fourth billed in the end credits, and I think her agent just deserves just a huge round of applause for pulling it. It's at the very end in an unexpected cameo. Fourth billed. Good stuff, agent of Gwyneth Paltrow. Good stuff.
Good cameo, though. Anyway, yeah, like I said, I think it's optimistic and it's good. And it's positive. We've had Spider-Man 1, I think, is optimistic with a slight darkness. 2, similar. But then 3 and The Two Amazings have both been quite bleak films. The second one attempted to inject that bit of energy at the end, the optimism, with that strong closing scene. But it's just nice to have just a fun, breezy Spider-Man film, because Spider-Man is a fun character. There's a reason he's so popular, with children and me. Yeah, I just think it was a really smart direction to go in a world where every hero is either angsty or cooler than cool, and all this, and everything's doom and gloom, or it's quippy as fuck. And this was just it was a smaller character, it was a more upbeat character. He's not winning everything, and that's not the tone they were going for. And the tone they were going for was very much they used this line constantly in press, that it was what if John Hughes made a Spider-Man film? And it did kind of have that vibe to it, especially with the kids, the cast. I've seen Photoshop versions of the Breakfast Club poster, but with the cast from Spider-Man in it. And I think that's a real strength, is the strength of the supporting cast.
Yeah, I think this movie is not an ensemble like Guardians of the Galaxy, but it is it relies heavily on the million supporting people who pop up in this movie.
Yeah.
And it leads to a real crisp pace because there's so much to get through, but it because no one has a real arc, it never feels rushed because it's only really Peter who's really going through something. Everyone else is kind of just there to be fun. And it works for this movie for sure.
I mean, I guess we should talk about Tom Holland as he's the goddamn star of the thing. I do want to talk about Vulture. I do want to talk about Shocker and Donald Glover and all these other people. But, I mean, Tom Holland is playing Spider-Man. So I thought he was absolutely tremendous. I think he's quite obviously the most believable child of the three people to play him thus far. To the point that he famously went undercover in an American high school and no one knew who the fuck he was, so well done to him for that. Captured the youth. It wasn't too Tobey Maguire, he wasn't too Andrew Garfield. It was just a fun Spider-Man, a fun Peter Parker that was just nerdy enough without being like a complete sad sack. Yeah, I loved his portrayal. I loved him in Civil War, and I loved him here.
Yeah, they really, Civil War gave you a really great taste of what he could be like, but you don't know how that's going to turn out in a full movie. Tom Holland nailed it. This dude is Spider-Man immediately.
Yeah.
I really wasn't digging what Raimi and Maguire were doing together, even though obviously the rest of the world did. Garfield, as much as I enjoyed him, he was too cool to be Spider-Man.
He was.
He was too beautiful. He was too hip. He was too with it. Spider-Man does not need to be bullied his junior year in college, like how Sam Raimi wanted it to be, but he doesn't need to be like a GQ model either. There is a happy medium, and they pretty much immediately found it. I think this dude has got it. He's going to be Spider-Man, I think, for at least a couple of Avenger films and a couple more Spider-Man films, and I think that's a very good thing.
Yeah, for sure. The quips were good, the drama was good, the sort of interrelationship stuff was good. I think potentially the strongest scene in the film is when he is trapped under the rubble towards the end, and he sells the fuck out of being a scared kid. For all his powers, this is a 15, 16-year-old boy who is trapped under a lot of concrete with no one around, and him sort of screaming out for help, someone help me, and just seeming so incredibly lost.
Great stuff. As mentioned earlier, I fell asleep while they were walking into prom and woke up while he was stuck underneath the house. So you don't have to catch me up on what happened. I like it as a mystery for the time being. But yes, he was very good in that scene, even if it was very jarring while I was watching it.
Jesus Christ. Okay. All right, so they go into prom.
I saw Michael Keaton point a gun at him.
In the car. He drops them off. Okay. Well, he goes in, he walks right up to Liz, and then he walks past her and goes out the back door, and then he fights, and he chases, and he brings the plane down.
And his friend, I saw the plane, I think. His friend, shoots Shocker or something I read.
Shocker, yes.
Yeah, I missed all that.
Anyway, he just said, there's a big fight. He ends up with a bunch of rubble on top of him. It's a callback
I saw that vaguely.
Yeah, so
I saw him underneath the rubble.
Yeah, it's an incredibly powerful scene, I thought, and him... it harkens back to, the iconic... There is an iconic Spider-Man moment where he lifts a car off himself, and he's sort of inner monologuing, and, it's been ripped off to death to the point it doesn't seem noteworthy, but I just loved how, as Peter, he's a scared boy, and then he catches sight of his half-ripped mask or whatever, or he partially sees the mask in the water, and he sees himself as Spider-Man, and this is the entire point of the character. In creating Spider-Man, he can create a man. That's the whole point. He is a boy, and he creates Spider-Man as a character, and he says, come on, Spider-Man, you can do it, or whatever. And he finds the strength to lift all this stuff off him. I thought that was a very good character moment. I think it paid homage to the source material, and I think it was the kind of scene that we have not seen in a superhero movie, certainly in a while, maybe ever. That kind of... Just sort of the believability of him sort of reaching inside himself for the strength and all that. I just thought it was a very, very well acted scene, and sort of where my mind would go when thinking about Tom Holland's portrayal.
To me, I think where he really just excelled was just how seamlessly he could go from Peter to Spider-Man without it feeling like a change. in any way. Like this wasn't like it felt like Peter was like, or Tobey Maguire was like playing up his nerdiness to make sure no one knew he was Spider-Man, almost like in a Clark Kent kind of way. Garfield, it felt like there was like an unnatural no change, if you know what I mean. Like it didn't like something. It just felt a little bit disingenuous at times. But this was just like Tom Holland is Peter Parker and Tom Holland is Spider-Man, and there's a slight spectrum of where he falls in on those, but at the end, like it's one person. I felt that was really, I felt really true here in a way it didn't feel for me in the other two.
And like they do that on purpose. Like he is like a more bumbling, like he's trying to figure this out, and you see it in stuff like the scene where he like stops that guy from getting into a car, and it turns out it's his own car, and he's having to argue with everyone in the neighborhood, and like people in the neighborhood are being like, "Hey, you're the Spider-Man guy, do a flip," and all that. And like him being bad at interrogating Donald Glover. I don't know, it's almost like in these other films, like the jump from I'm figuring out how to use my powers to I'm really good at being Spider-Man is too quick, and
it
sort of doesn't quite jive, and it feels far more natural that he is this kid and he is this hero, and like this hero isn't like so established that it'll be like, oh my god, you're Spider-Man? It's like people barely even respect Spider-Man.
Yeah. That's a really, so it helps to cover for the fact that there is no like sense of how the public feels about him, like through the newspaper or through the media or any like montages like that. Like we don't really know what they think about him because he's still so new. I mean, like the dude's 15 in the movies. Like Civil War happened very, very early into his Spider-Man career.
Well, I mean, we saw like
this is a new thing that is happening.
Yeah, we like saw Tony gave him the suit he wears after he'd been wearing something he made for himself. Yeah, I thought all of that was absolutely tremendous. I liked the kids they surrounded him with. I thought his best friend, I'm blanking on the dude's name.
Ned.
Yeah, I thought some of his stuff was a bit much, the Ned stuff, but I liked their relationship. I liked his sort of evolution into being the man in the chair and how enthusiastic he was. Like, it's cool seeing someone be like, oh man, you're so cool, instead of like every superhero film, it's like as soon as they find out who they are, it's like some sort of, well, you can't be this anymore. Or, I don't know, it was just nice seeing someone be enthusiastic about someone being a superhero in a film.
Yes, and he's also like a billion times more interesting than fucking Harry Osborn could ever be. So
well, that's not difficult. I think they went in an interesting direction with Flash, with the kid from Grand Budapest Hotel. Like how they're all really clever. So even though he's like the bully and the cool one, he's still, you know, on the... Are they mathletes?
No, they're debate.
Oh, okay, fine. I don't know. Either way, he's still on that. He's still...
No, academic decathlon.
Oh, okay, so everything, then. Yeah, I thought that was a good direction. Liz was, like, okay. For me, the huge standout is Zendaya as not Mary Jane, but kind of Mary Jane. I thought she was fucking tremendous, and she chewed every scene she was in. I loved every single thing she did. I remember ahead of time, the internet freaked out that she might be Mary Jane, and like, fuck them, because she was great.
In more, Michael is easily confused by things. I never heard of Zendaya before Spider-Man, but I knew the name, but not anything about her. Yeah, I knew she wasn't white. I knew she was the female lead in Spider-Man. I knew she was on the poster. Yeah. So I assumed Liz was Zendaya and was like tremendously confused. I was like, I think Wikipedia is making a mistake right now. It's saying that the person on the poster was that person with 5 lines in the movie. Yeah.
Well, I think she's on the poster because she's, I guess, famous.
Yeah, and I know. I just didn't really.
And you'd heard about it because that rumor got out that she was being Mary Jane. So I think the two confounded into that.
So I just assumed it was the love interest that was, the actual lead female character. No, poor Laura Harrier, who I could easily see doing very, very little in these Spider-Man movies going forward, as clearly she is not the chosen.
Well, yeah, I mean, she leaves town at the end of it, but she was like okay.
Yeah,
she's like not an amazing actress. Well, it's not an amazing performance. Let's say that. I did like their relationship, that like he doesn't get her because Peter doesn't get the girl every time. And it's
also he's being a fuckboy. Like he's not like
from her
perspective, there's no reason. And also, if there's one issue I have with this movie, one pretty significant issue, a senior who is gorgeous, who is popular, who is the smartest person in the school, is after weenie little freshman Parker.
Yeah, that was a bit weird when they revealed that she was a senior.
So this relates back to my second point, that while something we have not mentioned yet is that this is by far the most diverse cast in a Marvel or MCU related, definitely ever up to this point, although obviously be quickly defeated by Black Panther next year. Like, at the same time, you know, like, it's kind of sad that progress for the Marvel MCU is, you know, a young white nerd being like the irrational subject of affection towards women of color, like, who are like way above him in looks, social status, everything. Like, all right, like, yes, this is progress, but like, let's calm down. We don't need to celebrate this too much. And then plus, everybody else is on the periphery and a supporting character with no real arc. So, yes, diverse, but we can still do better than this, and we will next year with Black Panther. But yeah, Peter's a nerd who's undependable in every way. Like, and he's 15. Well, it's also, I think, illegal in New York.
Yes. She's a nerd too, though. Like, she's the captain of the athletic
but
I feel that there's like stuff that happened off camera, like, because I mean they've been on this team together for a while. I guess they just had some sort of
but this isn't like we just had a whole movie with Tony Stark and they left us with a tease of what kind of arc you would go on in between movies. Like, this is a new movie with a new character.
I know. I don't know. Like he's clever, and I guess when he's not freaking out about it, he's charming. I don't know. It didn't bother me that much because it's not.
It didn't bother me so much. It stood out as silly.
Well, because it's not like the huge point of the film. Like we talked about before, it's like
that's why it didn't bother me,
villain, girl. This was like different to that. Like, it wasn't incredibly well executed, but I did like that it ended in the way it did. With, I mean, yes, he kind of gets away with being a fuckboy, but you know, the circumstances are what they are, and she leaves, and it's not like he gets a kiss or anything. I liked that it was that way.
I agree.
Liz Allen steps aside, and then maybe MJ is the love interest next time, maybe not. They are saying this is not Mary Jane, but I mean, why call her MJ? Like, I don't know.
Were the people get as outraged about this as they did with, you should use your real name, Robin, because it was the exact same thing. But no, okay. So
that was retweet. Less elegant.
My friends call me MJ.
Yeah.
You are surrounded by your only friends in a movie, and they have not called you MJ1.
Well, she deliberately makes a point that she's not friends with any of them. So
I see.
It was less dumb than Robin in like the most serious movie in the world. There's a time and a place.
I see.
Anyway, yes, the kids I thought were great. We've covered Tony. Let's talk a little bit more about Vulture, I would say. I thought this was a surprisingly good portrayal because it's a character I had no interest in. They retooled him to fit this. They made his name far more literal in that he is he deals in scrap and salvage, so he is literally a vulture. I was worried for like the first half of the movie that like he was going to be incredibly sort of one note, but then they really saved him towards the end when he was like giving his speeches about the little guy getting stepped on and how much of this is for his family, and like the whole scene when Peter shows up at his door. From then onwards, I was like, oh, okay, this is actually a decently written villain. That Michael Keaton performs well. Like, he doesn't go too far with it, but he takes it seriously, it seems. I loved him. I loved that he was connected to the Avengers and everything through having his operation taken away, his contract taken away for damage control and Tony Stark and all that. And then just the whole dynamic with Peter where, like, you know, he's willing to kill him, but then when he saves his girl and everything, he's forgiving. It was just a really good but simple character, I thought, and I think there should be more villains like this, rather than swinging for the fences with muhahaha and it being bad.
Yeah, I mean, given the standards of what to expect from villains in modern superhero movies, this is a huge step up from almost all of them, I'd say.
Yeah, I put this up there with almost anyone.
I mean, I'm trying to think. I mean, like X-Men has kind of just turned Magneto basically into a hero. So he's not even. You can't even really compare the two anymore because that wouldn't even really be a fair fight.
But I liked that it was a blue collar villain. It was like a real. It's using real world motivations rather than I want to conquer this or do this. It's a guy who got fucked by rich people.
Yeah, and who is taking his life into his own hands, and what I think in a way that many people would be considered to be completely rational. And it was very well done. I think. Do you think he got very violent very quickly?
Yeah.
Like in terms of do you think obviously I should say too quickly or not too quickly?
I don't know. He was very violent. Like he seemed very violent. To the point it's noteworthy. I think he's just like, I'm not fucking around here. Like, this is what I'm doing. I've had things taken from me.
Yeah.
No one will take things from me.
That's how I interpreted it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I took from it. But I did think it was notable how quickly he shifted from blue collar construction worker to I will fuck you up, man. I will fuck you up. Like that happened very quickly on screen, if not in the character's real life. Because part of it is that this is like 6 years after this big life changing moment. Yeah, 8 didn't really add up with the timeline, so I didn't know what that was about.
Yeah, very nerdy people are trying to piece together the entire MCU timeline, and this is breaking it. Perhaps on purpose because of Doctor Strange, that movie you loved.
Yeah,
who knows? Anyway,
but actually, to me though, I thought probably the most intriguing thing was actually the mid-credit scene with him.
Oh, with Scorpion.
Yeah, was that? By the way, first of all, was Scorpion in the movie before that?
Yes, he's the dude that got the car thrown into him. They were trying to do that weapons deal on the ferry, and Spider-Man hit him with a car by accident and knocked him over the edge.
I was awake for that. I did not recognize him. And that actor's in. He's in Better Call Saul. I thought that scene was great. But what the basic premise of the scene is that he says oh, there's a rumor you know who Spider-Man is, and Vulture says, listen, if I knew who he was, he'd already be dead. Yeah. And I really think they've set this up beautifully for a redemption arc for him. And I would like them to hold off until the third Spider-Man movie. Have Keaton make a 5-minute cameo in the second one, run everyone he's still around. And the third one, he's helping Spider-Man take down the Sinister Six or something like that.
Maybe. You can read that scene a number of ways. That's why I liked it. You could see it as he wants to get Peter himself, so he doesn't want to tell anyone else. You could see it as he saved me, he saved my daughter, so I'm going to protect him. You could see it as just he doesn't really want to socialize with anyone in prison, so he's saying fuck you. So you could go any number of ways with that. I think it would be difficult to pull off that. I mean, it would be difficult because the character is written in such a way where he could just easily do the right thing. But I don't know. I think they are very much setting up Sinister Six, whether he's a reluctant joinee or not. I mean, you've got the Shocker, you've got Scorpion, you've got Vulture, so you're halfway there already in one movie, and it didn't feel crowded like it has before when we had the same number of villains. When we had Venom, Sandman, and Green Goblin, that was very crowded, but I think they handled it very well here. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and some of them don't get quite enough to do, but I think it never felt bloated to me. There was just enough of everyone, I thought. Yeah, I mean, I think the movie basically just decides that Peter and Vulture are the only two human beings worthy of a journey, and everyone else is kind of just along for the ride. And I think, that's kind of, I mean, does anyone else have a real genuine arc in the movie? Happy. He goes from randomly being annoyed all the time to randomly not being annoyed at the end. That's his journey. Tony, kind of. Aunt May Marissa Tomei as Aunt May, I thought was quite... I'm very hesitant about young, hot Aunt May, but I thought she was good. I mean, she doesn't really go on a journey, but, they have some really good moments, and I do really like her very final scene of finding out he's Spider-Man. That's a bold choice, because, that's not really done. The whole point was keeping it from Aunt May, because the stress would give her a heart attack or whatever. But this is not an old Aunt May, so... 52 is a new 32. No, no one goes on a huge arc, but I do feel everyone's got a little bit of character flavour to them. It's not everyone's got cardboard cutouts or anything. Yeah, everyone kind of stands out without getting much to do, which is just fine for a 2-hour movie. Yeah. So I think
I feel like they're definitely doing the Sinister Six. Like I can't imagine that they're not. Whether it's kind of hard to envision. As much as I like Bokeem Woodbine and Michael Mondo, like it's kind of hard for me to envision a major blockbuster movie with those two being such huge parts of it. But they're really talented actors, so hopefully they don't cut them loose or abandon them or anything like that. But yeah, I think with the ties to his family, I think Vulture's really set up to at least die honorably, if not live honorably for an entire movie.
Yeah. I think they're going, like, I'd be willing to see them take another crack at Doc Ock next time around. I think you do Scorpion and Doc Ock, and then you do like Craven in the third one, maybe Lizard, but you'd have to introduce Dr. Connors next time to make that work. And then you've got characters in place to do a separate Sinister Six movie. Because they're doing 3 of these, like second year, third year, and fourth year.
I would hazard a guess to say that Lizard does not appear again. And
I just think it would fit alongside Craven, and it is a fan favourite character. Because like Craven hunts.
I'm just saying, so. I would hazard. I think Marvel's gonna veto pretty much anything tied to the Amazings.
Maybe, but
would be my guess.
Either way, I think.
I mean, like. Unless they do it dramatically different, like how this Shocker is dramatically different than the last Shocker, than what's the fucking name, Jamie Foxx.
That's Electro, different character.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, there you go. Completely different.
Wait,
character.
really?
Yeah.
Wow. Oh wow, this is so funny. So this entire time I was like, oh wow, they turned Electro into a blue person for some reason. It was like I'd always thought of Shocker as. Wow. Yeah. This is kind of mind-blowing. I have no idea who Electro is.
So yeah, not to confuse you, but there are 2 electric-based villains in the Spider-Man world.
This is blowing my mind.
Yeah. Well, he's not really electric. He's more sort of like tremors from his hand. It doesn't matter. Anyway, we have a lot of villains in play. We have a lot of places they can go with it in the future, I think. Yeah, I just loved it. I loved the energy of it. I loved Karen, actually, the little onboard computer. When he's sitting in the facility and he's just talking to her, and it's like, oh, how long have we been here? 32 minutes. Like 32 minutes, Jesus Christ! Yeah,
knows what cute thing they did with that?
Jennifer Connelly.
Yes, and who is Jennifer? Well, not who is Jennifer Connelly, but
she's married to She's married to Paul Bettany, who played Jarvis and now is Vision. So they're AI husband and wife.
Isn't that adorable?
It is adorable. I thought she was very funny. As creepy Karen. Kiss her, Peter. And all this stuff with, like, the training wheel stuff, like getting all that deactivated and him fucking around with these crazy powers. I thought all of that was really fun.
That was really good.
Kill mode deactivated or whatever.
That was all real good. Martin Starr was also a lot of fun.
Yeah.
He had a fair amount of screen time, too.
Yeah. I fucking loved the bit with the Washington Monument. I'm sure it wasn't built with slaves, and the guard doing the sort of...
Yeah.
That they end it with him getting that offer to be a full-on Avenger with a crazy suit, and then him turning it down. Like, all he wants all movie long is to be an Avenger, and then he learns that he likes being sort of ears to the ground, like, local hero. I love that. I thought it was great. I don't actually like the design of that crazy suit he was given, so I'm glad that he is sticking with the one he's got. I'm sure we will see him wear it at some point in the future. But
so Spider-Man in general is a much more local hero. Yes. He's not he can't fly anywhere quickly or anything like that. He's not necessarily set up to be a big epic superhero saving the world. He is a New York hero.
Yes.
For local concerns, should we just pretend that the Netflix Marvel universe is just not really involved anymore?
Well, this is a thing. Kingpin is actually one of Spider-Man's biggest villains. That would be great if they instead of lending them a MCU character, if they were like, here you go, have Kingpin.
I mean, like...
That would be fucking great.
Like, the disadvantage of keeping Peter in New York is that those 4 heroes in there would clearly be aware of him, be concerned, perhaps not maybe about him, but there should be something there. There should be some acknowledgement. And I know they're just very determined to keep the TV people out of the movies. But
I don't know if they'll do it. I have fingers crossed they will give them a mention, an on-screen appearance, a very brief cameo in one of the two Avengers Infinity War movies. If they're going to put like every fucking character in, it would be nice to see them, even if it's like a cutaway to, you know, all this crazy shit's happening in space, and then you cut to New York streets where like people are running scared and like these dudes are just helping out, and then you cut back. Like, I think that would be great. And I think that would be a good, like, Daredevil is obviously the strongest of those four shows, but at the same time you don't just want to do infinite seasons, but they're probably not going to give him a movie. I think it would be great to see like a Daredevil and Spider-Man team up down the line. I think it would be great to see Kingpin in a Spider-Man movie. It might be a way to go. Like, they're both sort of officially in Marvel, but they're also off to the side, so maybe pair them up.
Yeah, I mean, like, obviously I agree. We know the line from from Kevin Feige, and it is no. They are in their separate universe with the chief executive who Kevin hates.
That is true.
So I kind of feel like that's not going to happen, and it's just kind of, I mean, it's not even really a complaint. It's more just kind of like an observation that, you know, if Spider-Man's going to stay local and purposely stay local, it's kind of ridiculous that they don't run into each other. And granted, like, there's plenty of running into each other in the Marvel Universe. We do not need more running into each other. But given that they're all in one city, I mean, then again, you know, Matt Murdock is so blind that he thinks Hell's Kitchen is bigger than, like, a 10-block neighborhood, so maybe he literally just never leaves Hell's Kitchen. Yeah,
all of those shows, very confusing for a non-New York native, I will say.
You would think, like, Hell's Kitchen is like a borough. It's like the size of man. It's 10 blocks. Calm down. Hell's Kitchen is barely a neighborhood.
Okay. Well, it's very important to ninjas, so...
Yeah, right. And also, like, you know, Punisher is just killing people. I feel like that would pop up on Spider-Man's radar.
Or the Avengers.
Yeah. You know,
anyway.
there's a bunch of ninjas bringing people back to life and underground cults, and like no one is concerned.
Yeah.
I almost wish they just kind of kept it separate just to avoid asking those questions, but I guess we'll see.
I don't know. I feel this has been a very rambly podcast, but maybe that's a good thing, something a bit different. Have you got any other like things you want to air about Homecoming?
I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It was a really easy watch. I'm looking forward to watching it again in a more conscious state.
Yeah, that would probably be good. Actually,
I really thought it was such a good idea. It's like, I'm just going to hop right off the plane, go for a run, and then watch Spider-Man. And struggling to stay awake for no good reason whatsoever. But I expect more good things from Spider-Man. They seem to know what they're doing.
Yes.
In terms of broader implications, I really think between this and Thor and also the Winter Soldier, the lesson is these sideline Marvel movies need to be more like team-ups. Like Winter Soldier was a Captain America, Black Widow movie. This was a Spider-Man, Iron Man movie. Thor is going to be a Thor Hulk movie. Like, this is the clear and obvious direction. We do not need jabroni supporting cast that only pop up in these movies. Like, we're only releasing 2 or 3 of these movies a year. Let's keep it moving.
Also, all 3 of those movies, kind of genre movies. So, what I keep saying, let's have less sort of generic action movies and have more sort of genre movie type stuff.
What is Thor's genre? Wacky space?
Ragnarok. Yeah, I guess it's sort of I don't really know what to call it, but it is a sort of, I don't know, it's sort of throwback sci-fi, sort of campy adventure, I don't know.
Well, I guess we'll see when we actually get to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is good things for Spider-Man, good things for Marvel, good things.
Like, the obvious thing coming out of all this has been a lot of people, like, being like, yeah, fuck Tobey Maguire, and then people coming to Tobey Maguire's defense and all that, and, like, comparing and all this. It doesn't matter. It's a fun Spider-Man movie. They have, I think, done a lot to, if it needed repairing the reputation of Spider-Man. They've left themselves in a very good place to grow. They've incorporated him very well into the MCU.
Yes. Shockingly well, honestly.
Yes, very shockingly well. Yeah, I'm positive about it. And I think it's as simple as that. It's a fun movie. And yeah, I'm excited to see where they go from there.
I guess it's definitely the best Spider-Man movie. It's got the best Spider-Man in it. It's got the best Spider-Man villain in it.
Yep.
I'll say Emma Stone remains the best supporting character, non-villain supporting character, though.
I'll give you that.
But
the general strength of the cast, I think, is stronger.
Yeah, oh, yes. Yeah. I mean, like, the other movies are just full of complete fucking J-Brones compared to this one. Like, everyone here kind of fits in well and is used effectively despite minimal presence on screen. I feel like I really didn't get a sense of Aunt May all that much. I don't know if I need more of a sense of Aunt May going forward, but...
well, they're going a different way.
I think it's just,
I like... The scenes they had together were strong, like her like helping him get ready for prom and like going to eat Chinese food with him and stuff. I thought that was all really good.
Yeah, like I feel like that was part that I really need to rewatch, but I feel like I just didn't get much of a sense of that, and I don't know if that was more me or the movie.
Yeah. I feel she'll continue to be a presence, and like ending on that note where she knows he's Spider-Man is very intriguing to me.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to be... I no doubt she'll be in every Spider-Man movie for sure. I'm wondering how much they do with her. But I mean, Spider-Man is in a much better place than it was 3 years ago. I don't think there can be any doubt about that.
For sure. The guys at Marvel had some big Spideas, and they executed them. But in all seriousness, listen to The Real World next week, and you'll hear me and special guest Ben Phillips talking about the Emmys. Also, go to entertherealworld.com with 2 E's. Mike is furious that I didn't just end on that joke. I'm going to be writing some stuff on the Marvel Netflix shows, which we brought up in this episode. How serendipitous. Leading up to The Defenders, where me and Mike together will do one of our wonderful listicle articles. Maybe we'll rope someone in again. That worked out very well with Wonder Woman. And we're going to be... I mean, you'll hear on the next podcast what we're going to be doing, Mike and I, next time. But yeah.
And also, I'm currently finishing 4 Reasons Valerian and a City of a Thousand Planets artistically failed, which will... delight the masses.
It will break Matt's heart because I really wanted that movie to be good, and I'm still going to go see it. But
shocking, a movie with Dane DeHaan playing a hero did not work out very well. Fucking creeper.
Yeah, I guess Spider-Man does whatever a spider can.
Like Goldman is a last name, but there's no Gold Man.
Oh, okay. There should be a Gold Man.